Well, hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about an important phase of your resistance training program, which is referred to as Deload Week. And to explain what deload means, I've organized the discussion into three sections. I'd like to first talk about resistance training and its purpose and benefits, because I think that sets the table. And then next, we'll talk about how the body adapts to resistance under stress. And then finally, we'll talk about what is meant by deload and just what you can do to improve your program to incorporate that important feature. So let's get started. By the way, I wanted to let you know my sources for this presentation. I'm quoting from my National Academy of Sports Medicine, or NASM, textbook, and also sharing personal opinions that I've obtained from successful competitive bodybuilders and professional fitness trainers. Mr. Nick Zaharis, he's a colleague or friend of mine I see every day at the gym. And then also Mr. Alan Aragon, who I speak about quite often in my articles. He's an elite scientific method exercise and nutrition research expert, and he's widely known in the fitness industry as the GOAT in all matters exercise and nutrition. So it's really quite cool that we get to pick his brain and learn from him as we go here. And just for your information, my Zoom background features my friend Nick when he was crushing awards and records in his competitive bodybuilding days. And Nick knows about resistance training, and he's got the receipts, as you can see here. By the way, he won the Rocky Mountain Heavyweight and Overall Championship in 2011 and 2012. And that's never been done by anybody before or since he did it. And also, I asked him what he did to achieve his back physique, which you can see is quite impressive. And he said primarily he did it with rack pulls and pull-ups. So anyway, I think it's a pretty impressive and inspiring success example for our topic today. In section 1, let's discuss what Alan refers to as the fountain of youth, also known as resistance training. The central theory behind resistance training, which is also called the general adaptation syndrome, which is on my title bar there. This was proposed in 1936 by an endocrinologist from Canada named Dr. Hans Selye. His work describes the process of how an organism adapts to acute stimulus, such as stress placed on the body during resistance training. Before we delve into what this means and its consequences, let's remember what happens with an effectively designed resistance training program. According to the NASM, again, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, resistance training includes miraculous anti-aging benefits. And I'm gonna list them out here. Includes improved cardiovascular efficiency, improved endocrine or hormone function, hypertrophy, which is the word that means muscle growth, increased bone density, increased metabolism, reduced body fat, increased coordination, improved connective tissue function, increased endurance, increased strength, and increased power. So, and it goes without saying that the lack of resistance training will lead to the opposite of these outcomes, especially as we age. So anyway, this will take us into section 2, how the body adapts to stress. Remember, we teach that stress management or reducing chronic stress is one of the 5 pillars of longevity. But in the case of resistance training, this is considered beneficial stress when done properly. Science distinguishes chronic stress as distress and beneficial stress as a word called eustress, which is spelled E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. And just as a reminder, I have a recorded Zoom call that I've done a little while ago that discusses beneficial stress, and I refer to it as hormesis. And you may want to go check it out. It's pretty interesting and gets into all the good things we can do with regard to heat and cold exposure and I don't know, different things like that. So anyway, I think that's quite relevant. So Dr. Selye goes on to state that for adaptations to occur, the body must repeatedly be confronted with stimulus or a stressor. He defines the stages of general adaptation syndrome to include, first, alarm reaction. And this is our initial reaction to weightlifting with some things that go on like what's called delayed onset of muscle soreness and things like that. Next is the resistance development stage, and this really is the holy grail of weightlifting, where we experience increased functional capacity and increasing recruitment of muscle. So this is the good stuff. But then finally, and hopefully avoidably, stage three is called the exhaustion stage. And this is where we also refer to it as overreaching and ultimately what's called overtraining. And this stage is highly counterproductive, as you might imagine, resulting in things like stress fractures, muscle strain, fatigue, joint pain, and even ligament sprains. So which can inevitably lead to lack of motivation, injury, and system breakdowns. So now we've discussed first that resistance training is our best longevity and health span defense, combating what Alan Aragon calls the twin serpents of physical decline, sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, and dynapenia, which is strength loss, along with a significant list of additional health span enhancers that we just listed out. Point number two, we know that resistance training is beneficial to a point and then may actually increase our risk of fatigue or even injury. So this will lead us into section three, the necessity of active recovery protocols and the purpose of deload week and how to incorporate it into your routines. The goal of deload is to reduce fatigue in four primary systems: our muscular system, our soft tissue system, which is our ligaments and tendons, our central nervous system, so this relates to our energy and our ability to contract our muscles, and then our psychological system, so that really gets down to our mental and emotional state. The idea behind Deload Week is to recover as much as we can while still maintaining our fitness, and then going back at our regular routine and achieve more improvements. So what does deload look like? Mr. Nick Zaharis is my friend, like I mentioned, and is a winning competitive bodybuilder and an elite fitness trainer. And he states, deload involves doing warm-up sets for a week every 6 to 8 weeks. And the harder you train, the more frequently that you need a deload week. And conversely, if you don't train with intensity, there's really no need to get involved with doing a deload week. And then just to build on that, Alan Aragon, the GOAT of exercise research, says there are many variations to deloading, but there's no real official definition. You can cut back on the number of sets that you do while maintaining your weight, or you can reduce your weights and keep the number of sets. So it's kind of subjective as to how you do that, but basically you're just trying to reduce your volume and intensity and some combination of those things. But both experts again agree that if you're approaching training casually and not putting a lot of effort in, really, deloading is not something that you need to worry about. Also, let's just talk about this since we do quite often, and that is, in the matter of active recovery days, good advice is to take the day off if you're feeling beat, and it's appropriate to target up to about 3 days a week of active recovery days. This just means away from your weights, but remember what active recovery involves. And so it's not just sitting on the couch and finding your favorite bag of potato chips. It's still getting involved with low impact cardio, doing things like self-myofascial release, like working with a foam roller, or what I just got during Cyber Monday was a massage gun, and that's really wonderful to receive some therapy there. Be involved with your stretching and your mobility work like you're learning and accustomed to doing. And then, of course, maintain your hydration and your good nutrition and focus on good, restorative sleep. But anyway, so that's what's involved when you're doing your active recovery. And that's really the spirit of deload too, is to maintain, those things. So in conclusion, I couldn't resist adding a quote from Dr. Selye, who we discussed was helpful in helping us understand the process and the benefits of resistance training and the risks of overtraining. And by the way, just to give you a 30-second biography on him, he was named the Einstein of medicine by the profession, and he has earned 3 doctorates, and also he has 17 Nobel Prize nominations. So I was able to do a little research on him, and I watched an interview he did where he was famously quoted as saying, "The absence of stress is death. Only the dead have no stress." So, I mean, I think that's kind of interesting to reflect on for a minute, but I'll just say at the end here, go forth and find your resistance training fountain of youth, but protect your recovery with deload and active recovery protocols. So that was my short presentation, but I will love to open up the floor to anybody who wants to bring any questions or want to reiterate anything that we talked about.
So, Brett, this is Jaime. So, quick question then. It's so deloading is actually just a period of resting. Is that what it actually means?
Yes, it's
It's
really
just
not.
resting from the workout.
Yes, it's giving your muscles a bit of a break so that they can recover more effectively, and it improves your motivation. And it's really its goal is to make you make more gains as you get back to work after that week off. And let's just reiterate, it's not really a week off. In other words, it's not that you're not lifting weights, but you're taking the volume down. And let's say volume means the number of sets and reps, and you're taking your intensity down. And let's say intensity means the amount of weights that you're using. So I just did some deloading today, and I'll tell you my experience. It was pretty interesting because you have this mentality like I need to be going to the gym and I need to be kicking ass and working hard all the time. And so when you're doing a deload week, you kind of feel like, oh my goodness, am I a slacker? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I doing something wrong? But what you can do during deload week is a couple of really neat things. And one is, really laser focus on your form because, if you're pressing your weights a little bit higher than your pay grade, your form probably isn't the best. And so deload's kind of a great opportunity to refocus on the form that you're using and make sure that's good. And then also what's neat to do, what I did today was what I call time under tension or time under pressure. I forget if that's the right word, but this is where you're kind of going a little bit more slow on your eccentric move, meaning your return. And this is really beneficial too in the methods of, resistance training. But yes, to answer your question, during that week period, every 6 to 8 weeks or so, you're just going to try and cut back your reps, maybe your sets, instead of doing 4 sets of an exercise, maybe do 3, and maybe cut back your weights. So instead of whatever you're doing, maybe take off 10 or 20 or 30 pounds, whatever. So you're still moving your muscles through their range of motion, but you're just not going at it with, your full effort that you normally do.
Yeah, and Brett, just to jump in here for a second. So Coach will let us know when it's time for a deload week. So it's not something that we would just do on our own because I know that he closely monitors everyone's training regimens, and some people may need a deload week after 8 weeks, but from my understanding is for most people it would be after 3 months. And he would look at that and say, okay, you can take a deload week and also combine it with some, diet changes. So yeah, it's interesting because deloading is really, it's similar to rest and recovery, but the rest and recovery is something we do every single week, actually every few days. And then deloading is kind of a longer rest and recovery done after a number of months, right?
Yes, and that's a great point you're making. Doing your deloading can be as little as a few times a year. It doesn't have to be as frequently as I mentioned. And like you said, I'm glad you spoke up and said that Will's going to get involved and help and coach when that should take place.
Good. And then a quick question for you also. When people are deloading, do they stay on their current diet or do they have to reduce their calories?
This is a great question, and I was doing a little bit of reading on it too, because I kind of had that same curiosity. The intuition, which I'm always wrong with my intuition in this field, is that maybe you should eat less because, oh my goodness, you don't want to gain weight or gain fat. And that's exactly the wrong approach, from what I understand. You don't want to decrease your calories when you're deloading. If you cut down on what you eat, you're not allowing really your body to heal properly. So we all know that we're trying to keep our protein up to that target of around 1 gram per pound of target body weight. But remember, healthy carbs is going to help restore our muscle glycogen, which is our energy stores. And we need also that energy for our body as well as our brain and our central nervous system. So it's really, even though it might sound intelligent, it's really the wrong approach to change your diet or eat a lot less food during the deload week.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I brought up another couple of questions in case people find them interesting. One is, I read some common questions that people have about deload. One is, will I lose muscle during the deload week? Because, we're all trying to gain muscle. So if we're taking a breather or intentionally reducing our volume and our intensity, does that impact us? And the answer is no. Most studies, and there's been a lot of studies on this matter, show that muscle and strength loss doesn't occur until you're something like 2 to 3 weeks with doing absolutely no formal exercise of any kind. And it might even be longer if you've been training for a while. So we really don't have to worry about that factor. And then another question that I read is an interesting one regarding your protocols during deload week is regarding your cardio. So some people train pretty intense on their cardio, like with high intensity intervals or sprinting or what have you. And there, the advice is to back off on that during your deload week. So it's not the correct approach to do that all-out effort on your cardio while you're trying to back down on your all-out effort on your weights. So you still want to try and give all your systems a rest is the spirit of it. But like we talked about earlier, we're not just sitting on the couch. We're still doing our low intensity cardio. And so, be taking your walks or, and doing lighter cardio, stuff like that. Just much like you do during your active recovery day. So anyway, I hope that was interesting, and I will make sure I capture the recording, and Lester helped me upload it to our website so we can have it for our consumption and for the folks that weren't able to join today. And so any other questions last call? In which case I will say thank you very much for you guys' time and attention. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much for all the information. That was very valuable.
Yes, my pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you all. Bye.